Hey folks, Sean here. And today what I want to talk to you about is how AI and technological developments like it can really be seen as magic to the uninitiated and the folks that don't explore these things like we do oftentimes in our world. Now, I recorded a podcast episode recently with my buddy Chris Carr, who runs a marketing agency called Farotech. And Chris has gone really deep down the AI rabbit hole, not unlike myself, but he's explored different areas of it as I have as well. We came together to record a podcast episode on it that should be available shortly. So look out for that because I think it was a really interesting conversation about here are some of the latest, most impressive things that AI is capable of. And in it, we're going to share a clip where Chris was exploring technology that's AI powered, which has him speaking about a topic in one essentially presentation that continuously switches back and forth between different languages, like all over the place, 5 to 10 different languages, where he seamlessly takes from the previous point, continues the conversation to the next point, but switches both the language and his mannerisms, facial expressions as well, because culturally, when people are speaking different languages, that happens. The technology accounts for that, and it's him facing the camera the entire time. Plus, everything is in his voice. So it's not like it's dubbed over in someone else's voice because of the translation. No, it's actually in Chris's voice, which is pretty wild. So I've seen bits and pieces of this across the web as AIs continue to evolve and do its thing, but it hasn't come from me from my own network yet. So it was really cool for him to have recorded that clip and then shared it. It will be shared in that podcast episode. So when that comes available, one of my interview-based shows, which features Chris in this case, when that comes available, stay tuned for it. Check it out if it's something you want to see in terms of a demonstration, because it was pretty impressive. But reason why I mentioned that is because it makes me think of this quote that is popularized. It makes its rounds, and it's about the evolution of technology. And the quote goes something along the lines of this: any seemingly advanced technology, or any technology that's advanced enough, is seemingly indistinguishable from that of magic. And that I see that as being the case now more so than ever, because AI is constantly coming out with possibilities that a lot of us never thought we would see. And the problem is it's easy to become overwhelmed with it, and for that to kind of deter you or make you feel like you're spinning your wheels, or it's ever changing and you're never going to be able to catch up. It becomes overwhelming quickly. So I want to kind of combat that problem and reshape how you might be thinking of the technology. Now, first thing I want to say is I have a pretty deep technical background. I worked as a software engineer for many years, architect after that, and hardware engineer before I was working on software. So I've been around technology my entire life. Even before that, I was ripping apart computers and whatnot when I was younger. But what I want to share is that you don't really need any of that experience to explore this world and extract a lot of value out of it in a way that matters most to you in terms of what it is that you're doing. Now, obviously on this podcast, we talk a lot about building software, SaaS applications, particularly B2B. Now, because of how much AI has evolved, it can cause these like spirals, and that's not where I want to see you. So the first thing I would say is try not to panic, right? Embrace it, but embrace it at your own pace. Don't let it overwhelm you. If you're constantly worried about keeping up, then you're not going to be able to figure out how to extract value out of it. So the first thing to do is to take it at your own pace. Now, the second thing to do is to realize that we're all in the process of attempting to build better mousetraps for the most part. Now, what do we need in order to do that? Well, we need the right tools. AI is a tool like any other. It may be the most capable tool that we have available, like the most powerful piece on a chessboard, but that just means that it can do more, just like that chess piece. So think of it in that way instead. So whatever it is you're working on, it's important for you to understand how these technologies work so that you can figure out how to leverage them so that you can build an even better mousetrap than you were originally planning. That's the most constructive way to think about it, but don't overwhelm yourself. Don't go too deep, too fast. Don't spend all of your time on it. Spend enough at your own pace so that you can learn it to the extent that it helps you figure out how to leverage it to increase the value proposition for what it is you're working on. Me, I happen to typically specialize in eliminating bottlenecks. So I look for business processes along the critical path of operations that have components to them which slow the process down considerably. The bottleneck, right? Just like an assembly line where they're putting pieces on a car. One of those stations, or maybe where they're putting the doors on, is taking the longest. The parts are piling up. It's slowing the whole process down. So if I focus there and I speed that step up, it improves the throughput for the entire operation. We'll be able to ship more cars, we'll be able to meet better demand, we'll be able to sell more, it increases our revenue, our profitability, etc. Right? So I'm looking for where can I make the smallest change to make the biggest impact? That's how I think of leveraging AI. As I understand more and more in terms of what it's capable of, that helps me step back and think, okay, well, I have all these bottlenecks. Here's how I can apply that tool to eliminate this bottleneck to create a significant leap forward in progress, which means a ton of value to the target market that's experiencing that pain and that bottleneck. That's the way I want you to be thinking about tools like this. Don't panic in terms of how much is flying at you all the time. Focus on what interests you and then figure out how to leverage it to strengthen the value proposition for the software that you're working on.